Okay, here we go. All right. Okay, please, Janine.
Okay, thank you so very much, everyone, and welcome to the NFBPWC virtual chapter webinar update on the ERA with our guest speaker, Carol Jenkins, who is the co-president and CEO of ERA Coalition. I'm Denise Monroe-Rusnak, the current president of the virtual chapter. I do want to thank our immediate past president, Carol Comito, for securing this fantastic speaker. I don't want to fill the air with my voice. I'm going to turn it over to Carol, who will introduce the other Carol. And let's get learning about the status and update of the ERA. Carol, take it away.
Thank you. As Denise said, I'm Carol Comito, and I'm past president for the virtual club. And I'm really excited about tonight because I want to just preface, before I introduce our guest, that I've been working on the ERA task force here in Arizona for the past year or so. And we did try to get the ERA ratified here, but that didn't happen. But I got to tell you, we tried really hard. I don't know if anybody's had a chance to look at what we've done. You can go on to the ERA Task Force Arizona. That's how you can find us, both our website and our Facebook page. I'd just like to share, we did one event in particular, among many things, and we did a 38-mile walk. That was a 3-day walk. And we walked around the area of Phoenix, including the capital area, where we kicked off the 38-mile walk, and then we ended it there. And we tried to hit as many important places in Phoenix that people would recognize. And while we didn't have a lot of people, we had a lot of engagement. We had a lot of people excited about it. We had a lot of news coverage over it. And, you know, sometimes you just need to do that. You just need to get people excited about what's going on and get the word out. We're not giving up. We're going right into 2020. Our next session for our legislature will start in January of 2020. So through the summer and through the fall, we're going to be visiting every part of Arizona, setting up tables, talking to people, making more and more people aware of what the ERA is, why it's so important, and why it needs to get finally ratified and made an amendment in the Constitution, because we know that women are not in the Constitution, and we're going to do everything we can to get them in there. So I just needed to say that because, like I said, we've spent a lot of time and a lot of effort to make this happen. So now I'm excited to introduce our guest. Our guest is Carol Jenkins, and she's the co-president and CEO of the ERA Coalition that is what I thought was based out of D.C. Apparently we also have a location in New York, which is exciting. And Carol, I apologize. I printed out your bio, and I left it on my desk.
That's fine. And Carol, I want you to know how proud we are of you all in Arizona. That was really an amazing effort. We sponsored a walker. We couldn't get there ourselves, but Diane Post, you know, is on our calls all the time, and you know, she's terrific. I love her because she doesn't fail to tell you off if, you know, she feels you're not, you know, doing the right thing. You know, we love that, and we need that, you know. So, but congratulations. That was really a tremendous effort.
Thank you. And there's been some amazing women. I just need to say that the young women especially, who I'm really excited about, have gone to D.C. for the hearing that the judiciary had a few weeks back.
Right.
They were actually able to be there, and the one girl, Rebecca McCood, who I give a lot of credit to.
Yes, I met Rebecca. Right.
Did you meet Rebecca? Yeah,
I met Rebecca.
Yeah. Yep. And Rebecca started that sash. She started making those sashes. They're everywhere now.
Yeah, no, it's a big fashion social justice statement. The sashes, yeah. Right.
And you know what else? Just to tell you, we had the original banner that has the wording of the ERA amendment. We had that when we did this walk and we did the kickoff at the Capitol.
Right. The pictures were great, and you documented it well too, right? So people can go to your website, as we do, to see, what amazing things you did. So I mean, it really generated a lot of national news too, which was terrific. So we thank you for that.
Thank you. So I'll turn it over to you, Carol.
Okay, well, I'm just going to talk a little bit, and then if anybody has any questions or comments about what's going on in your states, the ERA Coalition was founded about 5 years ago. We're celebrating our 5th anniversary. It was a conversation between Congresswoman Carolyn Maloney and Jessica Newworth, who is our founder and my co-president, and who's worked in this space for a very long time in Africa, Rwanda, South Africa, at the United Nations. She started Equality Now, as well as Donor Direct Action. She runs the Human Rights Project at Hunter College now, and also is working on the ERA. And she asked me to come in. It was right near the beginning of it, and I joined the board, but then the ERA became my passion. I'm determined that this is going to happen while I can still see it. And I want you to know that I have 3 grandchildren who are 10 and 6-year-old twins, and they're now working for the Equal Rights Amendment as well. I take them lobbying with me. So they're well versed in this concept of equality, and hoping that we can manage to actually give this to them for their working life, and for their children as well. One of the things that I always say is that the United States has really never known equality, so that when we do get the Equal Rights Amendment, there is going to be a huge adjustment that needs to be made, because this country has benefited from underestimating and undervaluing women for centuries. The fact that we're now still asking for the Equal Rights Amendment almost 100 years after Alice Paul first proposed it is just absurd. The fact that we still encounter obstacles to it is nonsensical. And so we're really hoping that within the next year we can actually achieve an Equal Rights Amendment. We need 2 things. We need, as Carol knows and is working in Arizona, we need that 38th state. Now, here's the funny thing. When I started working for the ERA, we were working on the start over legislation of Carolyn Maloney's, because we all felt that the 3-state concept was dead. It had been laying fallow since 1982, and everybody, or many people, were saying there's no way in the world that we can get that revived. And so we were working, Carolyn Maloney every 2 years, every Congress was introducing the Start Over bill, and has introduced it again this year as well, should we need it, but hopefully we won't. But as you know, in 2017 in Nevada, State Senator Pat Spearman at the head of this, and many women have been working on this through the years as well. She's the first one to share the credit for it. But in fact, Nevada passed the ERA, ratified it in 2017, and we all looked at each other having thought, this would never happen in our lifetimes. That old ERA is what we referred to, and would come alive again. But it did, and our attorneys said, when we asked, does that count? And they said, yes, it does. And so the very next year, Illinois, and you all probably know all of this history better than I do, but Illinois passed the ERA. So we had 2 states. We're down to 1 state. We almost had the Equal Rights Amendment this year. Virginia came so close. I say we came to 37.5 states, because the Senate passed it, the House of Delegates turned it down. And turned it down, we lost it by 1 vote. So that's how close we came, closer than we've ever been in 100 years. So that's the terrific news. The other thing that we're working for, and the reason we were in Congress, the ERA Coalition helped Jerry Nadler, the chair of the Judiciary Committee, hold the first hearing having to do with the ERA in 36 years in Congress. And the reason we were there is that Jackie Speer has a bill, HRES 38, that would remove the deadline. We have a similar bill in the Senate, Senator Cardin and Lisa Murkowski, a bipartisan effort there. And now we have Angus King and Susan Collins. So 4 people, and the way they're working in the Senate is that they won't add another Republican until they have a Democrat who are sponsoring this bill to remove the deadline. In the House, we have the votes. So all we have to do is get a markup and a vote, and we've got the ERA in the House of Representatives. So, we do think that Virginia, although according to Carol, it could be Arizona too, but we do think that Virginia could do this in January of 2020. They have a primary. Their primaries are June 11th. They have a vote for every seat in both houses on November 5th. They're expected to flip at least the House, perhaps the Senate, and if they do that, they could take up the ERA in January of 2020, and we will have our 38th state. And the archivist can sign it, it'll be ratified, and then, as we all know, there will be a lot of yelling and screaming. What about the deadline? What about, so if we have that removed, terrific. As we all know, Congress is in pure chaos right now with all that's going on, with the possibility of impeaching the president and so many other things. So moving anything other than that is a problem, but we're working to get that vote as soon as possible. But I think all signs are encouraging. We came so close in January of this year that it was, crushing in a way to be sitting in the House of Delegates and to see it lose by that close a vote. All we needed was one more, as it turned out, Republican to cross the aisle. One did. We needed one more to cross the aisle, and we would have had the 38th state. So that's, the encouraging news about the work that we're doing. The coalition has about 100 members of national organizations and local organizations and individuals, leaders who are working on this. We have calls every 2 weeks if you'd like to join our calls. Diane is on all the time from Arizona, but let us know that. We share strategy. And the good news is that we've been contacted by people, advocates working on the ERA in almost all of the 13 unratified states. So, that is terrific. When Georgia called us, we were looking at each other and we said, Georgia, are you kidding me? But they have a hugely active group there working, and North Carolina is there doing terrific work. So I think that all of the states, the only one we haven't heard from really is Alabama, and they have their own issues there. But we are hopeful that we will be able to say that we've got active groups in every unratified state working for the Equal Rights Amendment. So if you have any questions, please just let me know.
Okay, and are there any questions right now before we continue?
Or
Hi,
comments? Go ahead.
Yeah, this is Carol. I'm sorry. I know you just mentioned Virginia, and of course, being in Arizona, I'd like to think we could do this, but who else has a really good chance, in your opinion? And could it happen before 2020?
Well, we don't, I like to put this in terms of this is our situation. There's the math, there are the numbers, and then there is the magic. So right. The numbers are against us everywhere, I mean, there's no place where there is this huge, oh yeah, we could get this done. So it's always fighting for that. But the magic is it could happen one legislature could just decide, oh, come on, let's just be the 38th state and let's do this. So it could be that kind of a surprise. But from what we see, from what we can see, I think it's, Virginia and Arizona, every place else it's hard, really groups who are working really hard, like North Carolina, but even they know and say that they may be a year or two out. So our thinking is that we will probably get the 39th and 40th and so on pretty rapidly once that 38th state crosses that barrier. But you know, Virginia is, you know, almost certain to turn blue. Well, I say that as certain as anything, you know, in our lifetimes is. But that's what most of our strategists and advisors are saying, is that that's what will happen. And if that happens, then the ERA is a possibility, and that's January. So, but again, given the political climate that we're in, you know, who knows really? That's the, you know, the hard numbers. But, you know, we have to keep working. We know that it's closer than ever. Many people who had never heard of the Equal Rights Amendment, who thought it had passed, you know, some of the research that we've done, right, you know, indicates that 94% of Americans are for women having constitutional equality, but 80% of them think that this was done long ago. They cannot imagine that our country could be so backward and to be so intransigent in on this topic of just absolutely refusing to give women equality. So,
right. Yeah, it's pretty annoying and disgusting and frustrating, you know, especially when you're involved in it at the level that we have been. And, you know, I'm waiting to hear, but I hope that we just, you know, go after all of these people here that we want to change in our legislature for, you know, not standing up, they didn't even want to hear it here. That was the bad part. They won't even let people talk about it on the floor. And to me, that's not a democracy in any way, shape, or form. So I just hope we go after them. We have a couple things coming up, and we'll see what happens.
Right. Well, we'll be there celebrating with you. That would be fantastic. So, we're you know, we're going to be asking for people to write into Jerry Nadler to the judiciary, even though we know he has his hands full, just so that we don't get pushed too far down the line of importance, because, you know, the way things are going, you know, you almost feel bad saying, well, what about the women, you know? But we really cannot. We can only be so tolerant of their extreme craziness now, so that this doesn't get lost, you know, in that. Because I'm here tonight at a gathering for Karen Bass, who's chair of the Congressional Black Caucus, and what she said to me is you had the hearing and you haven't had the vote yet, you know? She said, come on, we're in charge now. You know, if we don't get it done now, when are we going to get it, you know? So,
it's kind of a now or never at this point.
Right.
Yep. We have the momentum now, so we have to use it. But, I mean, it's just so frustrating, and I know that, you know, it's not particular to the ERA, although it's all part of it, and everything that's happening now around all these states, especially the southern states, with women and abortion laws just getting out of hand. It's so important right now, more important than ever.
Right. Yeah, no, that's what's used against us most often. Trojan horse for abortion, for free abortion. Are passing these very extreme laws. It's a very difficult time to talk about rights for women, because most people perceive or like to think of the only right for women is, you know, is that, as opposed to pay equity, as opposed to recourse in sexual and domestic abuse, as opposed to pregnancy modifications, as opposed to the whole wealth of things that women are still discriminated for. And so, so we have to remind them. In fact, one of the event that's happening soon, we did an event with Jessica Lenahan. I don't know whether you know the Gonzalez case. It started out as Gonzalez versus Castle Rock, Colorado. Jessica Lenahan Gonzalez is now commemorating the 20th anniversary of the murder of her 3 small children. They were 10 years old, 8 years old, and the baby was 6 years old. And she had a restraining order against her husband, but the police would not enforce it, and he came and took the children, and the police would not check on the children. And when they were finally found, they had been murdered. She took that all the way up to the Supreme Court and lost the case there, but won the case in the international court, and is still fighting for human rights and civil rights and rights for women. We had an event for her last month, and Heidi Schreck at What the Constitution Means for Me is doing another one for her. And but it's just, taking cases like that, what we say is that this is not a theoretical thing we're talking about here. If you look at who the poor people in America are, they are the women of America who cannot find places to live that are safe. They cannot feed their children. They cannot educate their children. And so much of that is based on this pay discrepancy that right. Even if someone is making a lot of money, may not seem as so much, week to week or month to month, but over a lifetime could be millions of dollars that women are shortchanged. And, yep. Corporate America, has done huge booming business by cheating American women, not paying them the same amount of money for a man doing the same work. So, that's what, I try to remind people. And last summer, and I'm going back in a couple of weeks to Houston, where there is the largest food bank in America. And if you go there, you'll just be stunned to see they feed almost 1 million people who are food insecure in the United States of America. And, when you see things like that, you have to remind them, this is why we want it now. We're not talking about an academic casebook study. Wouldn't it be nice? We're talking about women we know today who cannot eat and feed their children, so they don't eat, and that's not an unusual case. I wish I could say, oh, that's the anomaly. That's not a real case. But there are women all across America, just as we speak, who are unable to both feed their children and eat themselves. It's a choice of who is going to eat on a particular day, in a meal. And, the children are going to be fed. So that's why I say this is an urgent, even though we've been working on it for 100 years, we say now is the time to do this.
I agree with you. And it's pretty sad that, like you say, in this country that we have that many people that, can't have a meal every day and be able to count on it. And if I can just add, this is so interesting that this happened today, and we're talking about it. I was in a meeting. A woman walked in who just got a new position, and she introduced herself, and afterwards I said to her, the person that had the job before her, and I knew him, I said, he was a director. I said, why is your title manager? And I loved it, because I wanted to hear this, but I didn't know she was going to say it. And she said, because I'm a girl.
Right.
That's
precisely.
The guy just left with a director title, which means he made more money. She comes in, they change the title, they lower it, they lower the salary, and she's a Hispanic woman, which, adds to it. But what she said to me after that? She said, don't worry, I'm going to get the title. So good for her. Right. But how many people are going to fight for their rights, especially women?
Right. And you know what the pay equity rate for Latina women is? You know how long it takes them to make up for what a white man made in 2018? It will take her until November. Mm-hmm. So 53
cents on the dollar.
Right, or less. Yeah, but so it takes almost a full year. And so for black women it's less, for all women it's less. So all of that is but it's a part of the accepted way of life. And I just, some of the companies that we've dealt with who are like the good guys, they really want to pay women what they
Right.
pay men, and some of them who insisted that that's what they were doing when they actually went and looked at their books, they too were cheating their women, and it cost them millions of dollars to make that right. So I think that that's going to be a real upheaval, and so, but it has to be done. It's, you can't just say, oh, it's just going to cost these corporations too much money to pay women, equally. Just sorry about that. So, I think, hundreds of years is probably long enough for that business practice to be the basis of a good bottom line, So.
What always makes me wonder, though, and I don't mean to be doing all the talking here, but we're 52% of the population. Why aren't we stronger, and why aren't we standing together and making this happen?
Right. Well, we have a lot of women who don't think that we need the ERA. In fact, there was the one famous woman we were in Virginia when she said it, she was a delegate, I believe, or Senate, who said, no, my ERA is right on my hip. And she was talking about her gun, that she didn't need anything else other than that. So, we clearly have lots of women who don't support the ERA. So I can't say that it's, it's only the guys. And, it's truly a bipartisan. In Virginia, it was the Republican Senate that passed the Equal Rights Amendment. So, I mean, we sometimes get in the habit of thinking that it's only Democrats. It's not,
That's true.
So,
yeah.
So we work on a very bipartisan way. It just so happens that in certain circumstances, it seems to be, the Democratic, because they're not at this point held up so much by the abortion issue, that we find that, the Republican America is, becoming like a concrete block, but around that one issue, and anything that seems to touch that, is a no-go. So we'll see. We have, the ERA coalition has just succeeded in getting its first woman Republican on our board, and she's fabulous. She knows everybody and is going out there looking for, because the only way it'll happen in the Senate is if it is bipartisan. So, so she's
great.
Terrific.
Yeah, that's good news. How about anyone else have a question for Carol?
Hi, this is Deneen. Carol, you had mentioned, once this happens, and I'm going to speak in the affirmative,
Yes.
then there's going to be an adjustment and thing. What types of things do you anticipate we'll have to look at, and are there plans or movements or thoughts or anything we can do to get prepared for that moment? Because that is we got it, now what?
Right. Well,
so I was just curious about that.
Yeah, the founding fathers, first of all, gave us the ability to amend the Constitution, which is a great thing, even though they may not have included the women or anybody else. They did have the foresight to say, well, you may have to change this at some point. And so that's what we think it should be changed much more often than it is. It shouldn't be so hard. But the ERA amendment that we are, in Congress for now, this 3-state, one, says, it doesn't even have the word women in it, but it just says you cannot discriminate based on sex, which means, so therefore you can't discriminate against women, as you have been these many years. It has a provision that it will take place 2 years after it's passed, so there will be 2 years of adjustment, and it will, in its first blush, only affect the federal government and the state government. So we're talking about state governments and the federal, everybody who works. So that's where it will go into effect immediately. So what we think will happen is that even though private companies will not, from that, be legislated to not discriminate, we think that the cultural impact, and that's what we're counting on, is that women and men, will be so enthusiastic about this idea that we are now all equal that they will force private companies, or private companies will feel forced to enact the same kinds of provisions. So that's how we think it will happen, by cultural demand and influence, and that we gradually will get to the point. I know that Kamala Harris has a proposal. By the way, so many of the Democratic presidential candidates have come out for the ERA, which is good news. But Kamala Harris has a provision that says that companies will have to look at their books, and that's private companies too, and they will have to make it right. So we know that's a long haul down the road, but that is what we would want to have happen. And the business community is so important, and that's one of the things that we're working on at the coalition now, is to try to get the business community on our side with this. Just as I went to a Republican fundraising gathering recently, and they were talking about the Equality Act. And here are all of these very conservative people saying, how can you put an asterisk behind the word equality, right? And that's for the LGBT, movement, the Equality Act. And I'm saying, all of the women in the room are nodding their heads and saying, right, that's exactly the same thing we say about women. How can you put an asterisk behind it? But if we could get, people to feel the same way about women as they do about other groups, that would just be tremendous. And that's the work that we really, that really is upon us. People say, oh, your work will be done once the ERA is passed, and we shake our heads and say, are you kidding? That's when the hard work really begins. So, there will be 1,000 court cases, and, we're expecting all of that, but, but it'll be, I think of it as so much fun, just think, we'll be working, we really will be able to say we're working to put in place equality for women. So
excellent. Yes, thank you for that.
Yeah. Hey, Carol, speaking of court cases, is the ACLU on board with us?
Well, we're having a major discussion now with several groups about the abortion issue, so it's a question of because we in the coalition have always said this is about women's rights, it's about a lot of rights, and it's not, I don't want to say just an abortion, I don't want to be misinterpreted by that, but it's about, as we were discussing earlier, it's about much more than that. But because the Roe versus Wade is in danger, and I believe that too, I don't think it will be replaced, but I think that certainly so many states are after this legislation now, after that court decision. So I think the groups that have been working on those issues, on Roe, on reproductive rights, are looking for what the Equal Rights Amendment can do for that issue. And of course, the fix that it puts it in, even though we certainly, think if we say women have rights, they certainly should have the right, to determine what, what happens to their bodies, right. But the fixed way our country is now over this issue puts the ERA in jeopardy if we seem to be too much about abortion. We haven't figured that out completely yet. So, but we're in talks with those groups to see how how we move forward together, because it would seem to be ridiculous if that's what holds up the Equal Rights Amendment. So, so we're in negotiations.
Well, that's good. I want to mention one thing about businesses that we're going to do here, and we're almost there. But in Arizona, a few years back, we got signs, and it was mostly the LGBT community that worked on this, that said "Open for Business." I don't know if you're familiar with that or if anyone else will call it. Yeah, and so we're going to create a very similar sign. And it says equal rights for women, and it's going to say, we're designing it right now, and it's going to say, we support, you know, and that'll be the businesses, we support equal rights for women. So once that sign is created, I'd like to be able to share it with, you know, you and anybody. Yeah.
That would be great. Yep. We'll send it throughout our universe. You know, we're looking for, you know, we have a new website that we're putting together now that will be more user-friendly, and, you know, your website is a good website. So, so we'd love to work together to make it possible so something like that would be tremendous, that other groups could use on the ground in their communities.
Right. Okay, good. Thank you. Anyone else? Questions for Carol?
Okay, this is Susan here coming in. Carol, I have a question for you, because I know quite a few people who think we shouldn't have the ERA, or that it's not even fair to even have it, or they just totally disagree with them. What would be your argument to convince them otherwise? And is there a way to convince people to change their minds about it?
Well, you know, so it's an interesting story. Just this year I met Phyllis Schlafly's daughter, and Schlafly Corsi, I believe is her name. And, you know, the Eagle Forum, they are some of our strongest opposition in the Family Forum. And, you know, and I mean, it's so funny, because what I say is that the way I see it is that we have a disagreement with them, but they really hate us, you know, and they think the ERA is going to be the end of womanhood, the end of the world. I mean, when you're in their midst and they're doing their presentations, and, you know, you're like, oh my goodness, I had no idea, you know, that the world was going to crumble if women have equality. And so, you know, what I generally say is that there are some people that we are just not going to convince.
Sure.
And we have to respect their views. I mean, and so I always, you know, say, I get it. I understand, you know, where you're coming from. And so I don't think that we should spend so much time trying to convert the really committed, really convinced against us, because I don't think it will happen. You know, I think we find the flexible people who may have questions about it. And we say, you know, this is a fairly simple language. It doesn't say, let's make women more important than men. You know, it doesn't say, let's pay women more than men. It doesn't say, let's take men's jobs away from them. It just says simply, you cannot discriminate based on account of sex. You know, so, I mean, as outrageous as that may seem, that's where this country needs to go. And I know that there are a lot of women who are uncomfortable with it. So, you know, I think we just have to we just have to keep saying, you know, it's the pay equity is not fair. You know, the fact that women, you know, have no recourse or have to pay so much money to get recourse for sexual harassment, sexual violence, domestic violence. You know, all of the money that Time's Up, and I praise them that, you know, doing great work, but they've raised millions of dollars, and those millions of dollars are going to pay for the lawyers for women who are taking court cases. If that's the only way of recourse, to say, I've been harassed, I've been sexually assaulted, I've been, you know, domestically assaulted, and it costs thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars to get justice for that. That's, you know, the Equal Rights Amendment would help with that. And so we have to say, do you know what it costs to defend a case, to go into court, to hire lawyers at hundreds of thousands of dollars, and then even if you win the case, you'll never be employed again because you're radioactive. No one wants to hire anybody who's sued their previous boss, or you're just unemployable. So I think we have to, many people miss that link that even if you say, oh, this person is responsible for, sexual harassment, and then what? You're going to court, you're going to hire a lawyer, and so all of those millions of dollars that they've raised is not going to the women for consultation, for therapy, for, getting back on your feet. It is simply going for lawyers to present their cases. So we still, we still have missing pieces in that, that kind of discrimination. Here's Jessica Lenahan, 20 years later, totally demolished emotionally by that loss of her children, still going out and making speeches, but still, not being able to work full time because she's so fragile. I mean, as someone said to me today, we know that Jessica is still suffering. Well, who wouldn't, 30, 40 years, the fact that woman gets up and leaves her house, to me, is the miracle after that loss and after court said to her, sorry, it's too bad the police didn't honor your restraining order. And that's the total sum of it. Too bad, and nothing else. So I think...
I wanted to tell you a story so you can all laugh. I think it's funny. A few weeks back, Gloria Steinem came here to Arizona to speak to the Planned Parenthood fundraiser that we had, and there was like 1,500 women there. So she's up on the stage, and they're asking her questions, and I don't remember the whole context of it, but she was talking about she was at some event, and she used the example that there was about 70% of the people on one side of the room who basically agreed with whatever was being talked about. I'm sure it had to do with women's rights. And there was 30% of the people on the other side of the room. And at first she thought, well, maybe I should go talk to those 30%. And then all of a sudden she realized, and this is what she said on stage at this meeting we had for Planned Parenthood, she said, oh, fuck them, we don't need them.
Right.
Lord, because it's just what you just said. The Phyllis Schlaflys of the world, you're just not going to get.
Right. But it's so funny because Gloria is a friend of mine, and my mother would always say about Gloria, I really love her. I just wish she wouldn't curse so much, And I would say, but Mom, that's the Gloria Steinem,
Gets the point across. Gets the point across, and it's only a 4-letter word.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, it was pretty funny, but she really, she made an impact with it.
Yeah.
Some people you just can't change their minds and don't even try.
Right, I know. I think we can use our best argument, but then not. I mean, we sometimes feel like failures because we haven't converted the most extreme person, to our point of view. And we just have to say they're entitled to, really. If we're going to be reasonable, rational people, we have to understand that people are entitled to their, to their opinions. We just have to get our 70%, up and moving. And, I think we'll be okay.
This sort of ties into that, if you don't mind. Now we know that Seal Richards and a few other people have started what they're calling the supermajority.
Right.
And I'd like to hear your opinion, but I'd just like to say that right now I'm a little disappointed. They're doing the same thing that we all do over and over again. We talk about it and we talk about it, but where's the action? Now, maybe I'm being a little critical. Maybe I'm expecting more because I know she's been doing this for about a year now. But I'm just curious, do you have any connection to them, and what do you think about what's happening?
I just saw Cecile. We were both interviewed on Democracy Now!
Yes,
and so we were in the studio, and it was the first time I'd seen her since she left Planned Parenthood, and it was, I thought that they had just recently introduced, I think it's fairly new, the supermajority. It's Alicia Garcia.
Yeah, that's what it is, but she's been working on it for a year. Right.
Right. So, you know, I respected something that she said to me because, you know, the coalition is always like, we're always saying, why don't you join our come on our coalition, join us. And what she said was, you know, we don't even know, we haven't done anything yet, so it's a little presumptuous of us to join a coalition, you know. So I respect that they know that they have a lot of work to do. But I love the experience of the three women who are doing this, you know. Ai-jen Poo, if you know her work with domestic workers, she has just done a tremendous job of organizing them. And these are women who were never respected, and now they're getting respect, they're getting pay, they're getting, you know, a union in some cases. And Alicia Garza, who does a lot of, you know, social justice work, was one of the creators of Black Lives Matter, and Cecile. So it's a really powerful trio. I think that and what the funny thing that happened was that we saw a video that was about the ERA. You know, a really funny thing. I guess Comedy Central put it together, and I love those. I mean, we're always accused, you know, we're the radical feminists or whatever, accused of having no sense of humor, right? But we really do have a sense of humor. So we enjoy these funny films that are done about the ERA, and Comedy Central did this, and it was really cute, the actress and whatever. We said, we love this film. At the very end, it said, if you have any questions about the ERA, contact the supermajority. And we were like, what?
That's great.
I know. So they're already, you know, they're so, you know, the idea of these three smart women, I really love. So I hope that we can, you know, so we agreed that we would work together. And if, you know, I want to know more about what it is that they are doing, but they're smart. And Ai-jen has done things for us, for the ERA Coalition. And so we're very, very high on all three, the capabilities of all three. I'm eager to see how that turns out. As long as they'll share the credit, you know?
Yeah, right. Well, my frustration is I've been talking about this myself for years, about trying to get everyone together. And I know it's a huge task. And I know I couldn't do it just because I don't have that kind of, you know, public persona like somebody like Cecile Richards has. But now I'm like, okay, now we're here, so now I'm already impatient. I've already been impatient. You know?
Right.
So that's my problem. Well, same thing with the ERA.
Right. Well, I think we need a little impatience. I'm fine with that. You know, there are some. We had, at our most recent call, you know, we had a couple of people who were really hot that there hadn't been a markup and a vote yet. And I was sitting there myself saying, I'm hot too, you know, I really, you know, I'm eager to have this happen, you know, but, you know, we had to say now, you know, we're working on it, you know, but, you know, seething, you know, a bit that it hasn't happened yet. So we really, you know, I think we have to be as aggressive as we can, you know, to not let this pass. You know, it can't, I mean, we really, you know, as Karen Bass said, if we can't do this now, you know, then when will we ever be able to do it, you know? And I just, you know, I say, and I often kid the millennial, you know, Bettina Hager. I don't know if you've know Bettina. She's fantastic.
I've talked to Bettina many times. Yeah, she's awesome.
Right. She is just fantastic. But I always say, you know, the rest of us working on the ERA are all of a certain age. I said, Bettina, if we have to start over again, you will be the only one to see it. And you will be in a nursing home talking about the old days, you know, when we were fighting for the ERA. So
that's what I keep saying. I'm 68 years old. I'm going to die. Let's do this. Let's get it done.
I know. It's got to happen. You know, there are so many, you know, women who worked on this so hard, you know, and there's a young woman in our WeWork in our office whose mother used to take her to ERA rallies when she was a child. And I keep saying, tell your mother to come join us. And she says, no, I don't want her to have her heart broken again. You know, she never recovered from that. So for all of those people, we just really, really have to take this seriously and get it done.
Yeah, we have to do it for those women, and we have to do it for the young women that don't even know that this has to happen.
I know. That's what people say, well, how do you talk to the young women, you know, about this? And I say, for one thing, I hate to break their hearts. I hate to break the bad news to them because they really don't believe it. They cannot imagine that they're going to be treated badly and differently than the men, you know. They're with this, the sky's the limit. It's no, there's nothing in my way. And then you see these women 10 years in and they discover that, yes, there is something in their way. So it's we did this year a really effective campus ERA day where we had 25 colleges across the country, a virtual gathering. And the kids were really enthusiastic about it, and, we just need to get the word out and to get them on board. At the end, the cohort that we were working with, these young women were fabulous, they could tell you everything about the Equal Rights Amendment and why we need it now. And before they started, they were sort of, well, what's the ERA? Wasn't that something of, that my grandmother did or so.
Well, that's good to hear. That's encouraging.
Yeah, I think I'm sorry, was there another question or a comment? I'm talking so much.
Actually, we have maybe about less than 10 minutes to go, just to let you know, time-wise.
Okay. Great. Any questions or comments?
Well, I want to say that we really appreciate you coming on the call with us. We had Jessica Newworth, probably a good year or so ago, and that was great, of course. And
right,
to have you on here now, it's a new voice to us, and you're new to me, and I look forward to meeting you at some point. And it's a fight that we all need to stay in, and we all need to work together. Like I said, I'm part of this group, and I have been for many, many years, as far as BPW. And then I'm very involved with the National Federation of Democratic Women. And every group needs to be jumping in and jumping on board. And I know we have a lot of groups on board, but I still think there's more out there that could be.
Yeah, we need the business women. We need businesses to step up. So yeah, well, thank you for your good work.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, we really appreciate the call. Does anyone have anything before we let Carol go?
You mentioned several times a website or websites. Could you tell me what those are, please?
Sure. Our current website is eracoalition.org. www.eracoalition.org. But don't get, it's by the end of the summer we'll have our new website up that's got toolkits and, all the kinds of things that are useful. We're trying to add this, but this was a website that was done for us pro bono. In fact, we were on the phone this morning talking about it with a young woman who did it 7 years ago. In the world of websites is ancient. But that's our website, and we're upgrading it as quickly as we can. But come to the phone calls if you if you want, come to the office. You know, we're at 142 West 57th Street. Just let us know when you're headed to New York, and would love to sit down and talk about, you know, about how we move the Equal Rights Amendment forward, and Bettina in our DC office too. We're hoping our next action that we're doing will be a briefing for the staff and the Senate for that removal of the deadline bill. So we hope to do that in June. We're just waiting to get a date for it, and you know, hopefully that will be helpful as well. And yeah, you know, just let us know what you need us to do. We travel. We're hiring a new person who, because Jessica was complaining that Bettina and I were out of the office too much. Well, we were in Virginia, we were in North Carolina, we were in the unratified states. So we're hiring a campaign outreach person. So that person will be on board over the summer, and so we will have more flexibility about coming to places where people are doing events and, you know, helping strategize and publicize as well. So that's, and we probably will add on another person in the fall. So we're growing, and hopefully we'll be totally staffed up as we enter 2020 in January and get that 38th state.
Are you going to have any staff like on the West Coast or other than New York,
well,
Washington?
Right. Yeah. That is the person that we're getting. We said anywhere you are, you know, not in New York or DC, but, you know, so we have candidates who are in Atlanta and, you know, California. Yes, there are a couple. So I don't know where this person will be, but we totally realize that we are underrepresented on the West Coast. Are you from the West Coast, or
I live in California? I live in California.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So no, we definitely need. We have members of our advisory council and our board who are based in California, but we really need an office. So we do travel there, but we need to have something there. What part of California would you say would be the best place to put that?
Well, you know, that's hard because you've got three possibilities. You've got Sacramento, which is the state capital, and
right.
So there's certain, you know, possibilities there with the legislature, but then you've got San Francisco and you've got Los Angeles, so.
Right. So, yeah, so it would be great
Diego.
to have somebody who could, I love San Diego, right. Someplace to, so yes, we'll think about that. That'll probably be a 2020 add to our staff. But I think that the strongest candidates that we're interviewing now are in the South, you know, which those unratified states.
Well, and that makes sense, you know.
Right. So we think we'll be going. We're looking for somebody there, and yeah, but we thank you for reminding me of that. We do need California.
That'd be great.
There's such a terrific, yeah.
Yep, the blue state.
Right.
Yeah.
Cutting edge. I laughingly tell the story of recently having ordered something from Amazon. It was like a baker's rack, you know, you just need something to put things on. And the package arrived with a huge warning on it, indicating that this item did not pass California's carcinogenic standard. And I said, are you kidding me? You know, and then what am I going to do with it? So I said, keep it, you know, and, but then I gave it, you know, but who are you going to give a carcinogenic item to? You know, here, have this. So, you know, the super in my building finally got rid of it, but just that cutting edge California forward thinking is terrific.
Yeah, it's great.
Having nothing to do with the ERA, but having to do with being smart.
Well, Carol, we want to let you go because we've had you on here for an hour, and we really want to thank you for being on the call and talking to us and letting us reach out to you. I know I will. I hope other people will as things happen in their states. And, you know, we'll all just get on board, whether it's Virginia or Arizona or wherever. We just all have to get on board and make sure it happens.
Right, great. And Carol, let's talk if anybody on the call wants to join our call or, you know, more information, we can, or have us come, you know, we can do that. So I'll rely on you to let us know, the contact information.
Our National Vice President for Advocacy does attend your calls, so.
Oh, who's that?
Well, now it's Nancy Werner. It was Linda Wilson.
Of course, of
and
course.
I'm still usually, Linda Wilson, I'm still usually on those calls.
Yeah.
Ah, great, great. Thank you for that. Thank you. So we'll rely on you then to pass the word. Any of the other members who want to join, that's great.
Yeah, got to get the word out, Sandy. Let them know everybody's involved.
Oh, yeah, and that's why we, you know, we always wanted to be a part of this and have that's one of their one of the things we like them to do is to be on those calls. So.
Great, great. Well, thank you.
All right.
Well, thanks everybody so much.
Thank you.
Excellent, excellent. Yes, thank you, everyone. This is Deneen. I thank you again, Carol, so much. Thank you for everyone who attended. With Carol Jenkins' permission, of course, we would very much like to post and share the recording of this webinar. I will do my best to convert it and have it ready for distribution as quickly as possible. I also would just like to let everyone know that our next planning meeting for the virtual chapter, as of right now, because things change, is scheduled for June 20th at 8 p.m. And keep your eyes open because we will be testing Zoom as a potential platform moving forward. So we figured what better way to test it than to actually have one of our meetings on it. So we're going to be doing that. Look for information that way. Once again, this is Deneen Monroe-Rusnak, NFBPWC Virtual Chapter President, saying thank you all very, very much for joining us, and thank you to those who may be listening to the recording. Have a great night. Take care, everyone.
Real quick, for the Zoom thing, are you doing